prospects for the growth of the fintech industry in Nigeria came to the fore at the BusinessDay summit, focusing on the theme, harnessing the power of disruptive innovation in fintech. It brought together stakeholders in the financial services and technology space in the country. In his opening remarks, the publisher of BusinessDay, Mr. Frank Aigbogun, shared the essence of the summit.
One thing I can assure you is that BusinessDay will continue to be at the forefront of providing platforms for conversation around trends, around sectors that are helping to shape our lives and shape the way we make money, we manage money, or the way sometimes we lose money.
Giving the keynote address, the Director of Banking and Payments of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Dipo Fatokun, stressed that Nigeria must adopt disruption in technology to become a competitive economy.
I believe that the main reason why we are here is because we all share that ambition to see a competitive Nigerian financial sector that will tap into all opportunities offered by financial innovation and access. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no doubting the fact that for us to remain competitive as a nation, Nigeria must make the most of this disruptive technology to accelerate financial inclusion. At this moment, some actors are leveraging new technology so seriously that it may be hard even for regulators to keep up with the pace. Notwithstanding, conventional financial institutions are still channeling much investments in maintaining old systems. That is not to say that they are unaware of the challenges and the potentials offered by fintech. However, all of us, either as operators, regulators, or fintech, must be ready to embrace the future through innovation, such as machine learning, which is a subset of artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, cloud computing, adopting to and not weakening the financial services sector. As regulators, we are aware of the fact that we must continue to focus on the risk posed by this innovation. But it is also our duty, especially in this field so rich in opportunity, to support fintech solutions in enabling our businesses to become more efficient and more competitive. And of course, to the delight of all, to bring down the cost of doing business.
The MD and CEO of Diamond Bank, Mr. Uzoma Dozie, in his presentation said fintech is all about convenience, security, and transparency, with payment at the heart of it.
From my own perspective, to try and understand it and try to explain it to people, fintech for us, is about convenience. How do we make things simple for people? Right? I think, how do we make it more secure? People keep talking about cybercrime, and like every time they go into tech space, they get concerned about what's going to happen. But then again, if we look at it, we're trying to make things more secure, and every time you do something new, is a new element of risk. But then, what you're trying to do is actually remove risk. So in the end, is a net reduction in risk. And it's transparency as well. So if there is more transparency, that means there's more trust. You have better adoption, and then you have scale. And I think payment is at the heart of fintech. Everything is about payment. If you have convenience and if you have security and transparency, you don't have payment, then is it fintech?
Mr. Frank Aigbogun, Mr. Dipo Fatokun, and Mr. Uzoma Dozie speak further on the summit, issues of regulation, and the outlook for the fintech industry.
If you take a look at the theme that we chose, we're looking at how to harness innovation. And in an environment of constant disruption. Financial technology pervades the life of everybody because it's about money, how money moves.
how money is made, how money is managed, how money is lost, and how to curtail such losses. And we thought that working with the various stakeholders, the Fintech Association, the banks, the technology companies, for instance, that we needed to bring people together, including the regulators, because one of the key things that we continue to hear was that in a process where there is constant disruption, we have to be careful in the way that regulation is done, so that regulation does not impair innovation. So that was actually the grand norm, the motivating factor. How do we get regulation to happen in a way that it engenders innovation rather than limits innovation?
Number one is the need for regulators and innovators to work together. It's very key because without consumer confidence, which will actually be brought about by the collaboration, even the fintechs are not likely to get to the critical mass that is needed. Number two is that as regulators, there are take-homes, which includes the need for us to recognize the fact that fintech startups also need to be brought into the ecosystem. Number three is the fact that fintech is the future of payment services. There is no doubt about it. And closely linked to that is the issue of innovation. So innovation must continue to happen, and as they happen, we must take cognizance of the need to bring those who are bringing out this innovation into the payment space so that all of us will benefit. And one added advantage that is obvious from the discussion so far is that with the scalability of fintech and their operations, the cost of doing business will generally reduce, which is a good thing for all of us. But as we look at the cost, we also need to look at the consumer protection and the trust, so that only those who are fit for purpose will be brought into the field. So those are some of the takeaways.
As the chairman of the e-fraud committee, there are the issues of cybersecurity, which is very critical in Nigeria, and even smart security. What are you doing in terms of the regulatory process to ensure that cybersecurity is strengthened in the whole fintech process?
That comes from two sides. The first side is that of technology, and the second side is that of the people. From the technology point of view, Central Bank has issued guidelines that has assisted and is still assisting the operators in the field to ensure that our cyberspace is very secure. Let me give you an example. Quite recently, you heard of the ransomware, WannaCry. But it will interest you to know that no Nigerian bank was affected. Why? Because the vulnerability that led to that incident was a patch that was released by Microsoft. And we in Central Bank mandated all financial institutions in Nigeria to make sure that they update the patches as they are released. So when that WannaCry ransomware happened, none of our financial institutions could be affected because the vulnerability had actually been closed. That is one. We have so many examples to ensure that when it comes to cybercrime, our financial institutions are up to date. Then the second stage, as I said, is that of the people, because most of the time, as Dr. David Isiawe said in that presentation, the gap is the gullibility or the absence of knowledge, although in some cases it could also be greed. So we are educating, sensitizing, and informing the Nigerian public to be aware. Supposing, for example, somebody sends a text message to you that your BVN has been blocked, you call this number. And of course, maybe because you don't know, you called. And then the person starts asking for your account details, asking for your card details. You should be put on inquiry that, no, definitely this is not coming from my bank. So those are the two important things that all of us must bear in mind so that we don't fall prey to these fraudsters.
Finally, what has been the experience you having this sandbox engaging stakeholders in fintech, where you look at experiments and developing solutions, supporting and looking at a good regulatory approach for the fintech industry?
How's the process been? And these fintech companies also need some support. How has the experience been engaging them and this experiment?
Yeah, the experience has been wonderful because in Central Bank we issued some guidelines compelling all participants in the payment system to be licensed. And that, of course, means that they have to come to us. We need to look at what they are doing, see how compliant they are, and whether it could be trusted and relied on. So many of them have come up, and we are working with other stakeholders, just as it was mentioned in the keynote address. We are working with other stakeholders to ensure that we create an avenue to experiment before they are unleashed onto the market, so that the disruptive nature of their activities will not be negative, but positive.
When you look at the investments that banks have made in many innovations to actually drive secure, easy, convenient payment, we haven't scaled many of them. So if you look at, how do we use BVN to make more secure payments, to build more trust? How do we use MCash that has just been launched by NIBS for the banks, which is USSD, and which overcomes the problem of data if need be, and allows people to use their dumb phones to make payments and receive payments, and merchants to avoid using a very expensive POS terminal to actually receive payment. How do we come together from a regulation perspective to, shall I say, enhance regulation to make it much easier, ease of doing business, and also legislation to actually look at the legislation and say, okay, what are the things that now that we are invested in some things to reduce the risk, we need to look at some laws that were put in place because of lack of infrastructure. Now that we have put that infrastructure, how can we do that? So those are the things that this kind of forum does. It actually creates awareness to all the stakeholders and say, okay, what part can I play in driving this change?
Nigeria is currently third in Africa when it comes to the fintech industry. With strategic investments, effective regulations, and collaboration among key players, Nigeria can leapfrog South Africa and Kenya to become the fintech leader in the continent in the next few years.